You're watching WOWT NBC Omaha. Now, more in-depth, complete breaking news coverage. This is WOWT 6 News, live at 6.
Glad Kerrie had a regular habit of prayer, not only in church, but also in her squad car. Some of us, particularly in the Roman Catholic tradition, gather to pray also for Kerrie.
A touching tribute to a fallen officer.
Thousands turn out from across the country for Officer Kerrie Orozco. Good evening, I'm Mallory Maddox.
And I'm John Nicely. Our community lost someone special 1 week ago tomorrow. And on this day, a week of pain and grief comes to a peaceful end with a touching tribute to Officer Kerrie Orozco, who died in the line of duty.
We begin with WOWT 6 News' John Chapman, who was there for the funeral services at St. John's Church on the Creighton campus.
Thousands of law enforcement officers and members of the public made their way to the CenturyLink Center to honor Officer Kerrie Orozco. This was the public view of a ceremony filled with family, friends, and her close co-workers, all now missing a very special person.
She's a wonderful person who's touched our lives. We love her. Some of us couldn't imagine ourselves not being here. She knew her role, and she felt it was important to make the streets safe for everybody. She wanted to promote peace.
Over the last few days, many people have had a chance to get to know this person, a person who taught us all that police are just like us. They are people with feelings, family, and friends.
Now that the community, Omaha, and really the nation has gotten a glimpse of Kerrie's life and has gotten to know her, I see her legacy as that of breaking down barriers. And how do we move that on? Well, for one, for those who have never met a police officer, you now know one.
With photographer Dustin Dales, John Chapman, WOWT 6 News.
One of the more touching moments of the funeral service was when Sisters in Blue were summoned to come forward.
Each female member of the Omaha Police Force lined up holding a blue rose, creating a beautiful bouquet of blue roses next to Officer Orozco. After the funeral came the procession, and our Aaron Murray is covering that part of the story and joins us 6 View Live.
John, Mallory, it really was such an incredible sight on such a sad day. Thousands of people lining the streets, all to say goodbye. Many of them telling me that they did so to show support to the family and fellow officers of Detective Orozco. They wanted to let everyone know in the funeral procession that they not only support Blue, but they plan to carry on Orozco's legacy.
Through the drizzle, thousands crowded the streets of Omaha into Council Bluffs. Young and old, all standing together to say goodbye to Omaha Police Detective Kerrie Orozco.
It's been a hard week. It's just, I can't believe she's gone.
An emotional day for everyone, but especially for those who knew her. Cheryl lived next door to Orozco here in Council Bluffs. She made these signs in Orozco's honor. Also among the crowd, members of law enforcement. For them, this loss hits a stronger chord.
It's going to be bittersweet seeing her come down the road, but this is what you do.
As the hearse carrying Detective Orozco passed, followed by family, fellow officers, and hundreds from across the state, families took a moment to explain to their children the gravity of what they were witnessing.
Just on the way down here, we had that whole lesson on, tragedy and all that stuff, and I think it's good for them to be able to experience, and hopefully we can make a bad situation, a good learning experience.
Dressed in blue and holding American flags, each person stood strong, willing to pay respect.
And as a citizen, they're here to protect us and to serve us, and it's the least that we can do to show our respects.
And in a somber silence, thousands supported as Detective Orozco made her last pass through the cities she loved.
Omaha Police tells us 453 police cruisers and hundreds of other vehicles came down the road here, while thousands of people watched for more than an hour. It really was an incredible sight. Even when the rain kind of started to come down, people didn't move. They were determined to stay put until that last car went by them. Like I said, just a really somber and powerful sight. Reporting live with photographer Wayne Martino, Aaron Murray, WOWT 6 News.
As the procession began, we had a crew watching from Able 1, the police helicopter flying overhead.
As Aaron mentioned, thousands of people lined the streets as the procession made its way from Omaha to the cemetery in Council Bluffs. Here you can see the hearse travel under the American flag and then continue down the road as flags were held on either side, eventually making its way into the cemetery.
That's where WOWT 6 News' Brandon Scott continues our coverage 6 View Live.
John and Mallory, just a few hours ago, Officer Kerrie Orozco was laid to rest here at St. John's Cemetery in Council Bluffs. And I've got to tell you, this was a very emotional and dignified send-off for an officer who touched so many lives. Fighting back tears, Heather Bednar watched as the procession for Officer Kerrie Orozco arrived at St. John's Cemetery.
So she can look down on us and know that we're here for her, and she might not even know me. I don't even really know her, but it's for the fact of giving the final goodbye right here.
Thousands held flags and lined the street. Some parents even pulled their kids out of school for a first-hand lesson in heroism.
They needed to be here to know how to honor and support our troops and our cops and everybody.
The Council Bluffs Fire Department stood at attention as the car carrying Officer Kerrie Orozco's casket passed through the gate. Orozco was born in Iowa. This crowd welcomed her home. Rain fell with tears during the burial, but despite the storm, countless officers stood tall as bagpipes played, and a fallen hero was laid to rest.
When the pipes play and the trumpets play, it brings that flood of emotions back, so it's very touching.
As the ceremony ended, I saw several officers walking away, wiping away tears. While the ceremony may be over, for so many men and women in blue, the pain remains. Reporting live with photographer MH Danker, Brandon Scott, WOWT 6 News.
During the eulogy, Father William Bond talked about two of Officer Orozco's true loves.
Her love of her family and her career.
Kerrie died doing what she loves to do. She loved being a cop. Even when she was holding little baby Olivia Ruth against her chest in the hospital so the two of them could bond skin to skin. She talked about wanting to get back into work and saving that maternity leave for the time Olivia Ruth would come home. She talked about feeling strange, not taking her gun to the hospital. It was so much a part of her. She liked making big arrests that made a difference. And even as we were preparing for marriage, I could see the professionalism and the joy she had for her work in law enforcement. And she reminded me that in her world, the people she deals with are not perpetrators, just suspects. Let someone else do the judging. Her job is to make sure the process happens, to make the arrest, to bring them in, and to let someone else decide who's guilty and innocent.
It wasn't just Omaha police mourning today, but rather every police department across the country.
And many officers traveling right here to our city to show their support. WOWT 6 News' Joe Chiodo continues our complete coverage live.
John and Mallory, I'm live right now at police headquarters, and take a look behind me at this memorial for Officer Orozco. You can see the impact that she had on this community, but it wasn't just a local impact. It was one that was national. Many of the police officers from different departments that I talked to today say they realized that it just as easily could have been them. That is why so many different departments showed up here to our city to support Kerrie and join in on this procession.
Car after car. A wave of blue took over the streets of Omaha on Tuesday. 453 cruisers to be exact, filled with officers from other cities, including Officer Mark Nelson with the St. Paul, Minnesota Police Department.
We've lost officers in Minnesota in the last few months, and it happens up there. It happens everywhere. It's an incredible show of support from the law enforcement officers nationwide.
These men and women know the dangers of this job all too well. Unfortunately, it's not the first time they've marched behind bagpipes. Not the first time they've saluted as a hearse drove by.
There's definitely a brother and sisterhood in law enforcement and all first responders, EMS medics, and when one of us is injured or killed, I think it's very important that we all come together to show our support for that department, that family.
Officer Joshua Fry flew in from San Francisco, paying tribute to Officer Kerrie Orozco. Sergeant Eric Gruenhagen traveled from Davenport.
If one falls, we all feel that impact.
Signs of departments from other cities even appeared in the crowd.
As I'm wearing the Yankton Fire Department shirt.
Mike Villanueva is from La Vista. His son used to be an Omaha firefighter, but relocated to Yankton, South Dakota.
It just hit close to home.
His son couldn't make it, so he stood on the street for him, honoring a life taken too soon.
She's going to be up with the Lord up there, so she'd be in a good place.
A lot of those officers we talked to, you could see them driving through the procession and getting very emotional, so you could tell just how overwhelmed and proud they were to be a part of this moment. Something else, I just checked in with PIO James Shade here at the Omaha Police Department. He tells me that those police officers also brought up gift cards for the Orozco family, as well as a trailer full of baby items to bring up to give to her baby Olivia, full of diapers and things like that. So a very good showing of support for a family that is in definite need. Reporting live, Joe Chiodo, WOWT 6 News.
Thank you, Joe. And there were some poignant moments at St. Joseph Cemetery, the kind that could never be scripted, etched in our minds forever. Let's go back to the cemetery as Brian Mastery reports some of his observations.
Mallory, it was easy to see the hurt, the grieving going on in here. But there were just so many people that turned out here at St. Joseph. And I think that the police chief summed it up best at the funeral, that he said, "I cannot think of a better representative for our profession than Kerrie." We often hear there is strength in numbers. The Kerrie Orozco family must have felt the sheer power at St. Joseph Catholic Cemetery in Council Bluffs. One by one, hundreds of police vehicles from across the country followed the family to the gravesite to show support. Why did they come?
This is our answer right here. This is why we're in this. This is a brotherhood and a sisterhood. And we, like she said, we drove 6 hours to show her support. We didn't know Kerrie, but we knew her as a professional.
From Amazing Grace on the bagpipes to a helicopter flyover, the magnitude of the funeral became clear. Omaha police officers stood still in the hard rain until the majority of the procession arrived. A retired New York police officer offered this perspective.
When God cries, this is it. He's crying for this young lady.
For 7 years, Detective Kerrie Orozco protected us from danger. As the graveside service began, her fellow officers shielded her family from the spotlight, trying to make such a public death more private.
This month alone, 9 officers were murdered. So it's a tragedy.
A few years ago, Chicago police officer Rick Caballeros formed Brother for the Fallen, a commitment to attend funerals of officers killed in the line of duty. The turnout for Officer Orozco moved him.
I've been through probably about 20 funerals throughout the country. This, I have to say, is the biggest turnout I've seen as far as the community coming together.
Eventually, the rain subsided, and Kerrie Orozco's family and her law enforcement family said goodbye, leaving the cemetery with the reminder to carry on. So the end of watch is Wednesday, March 20th for Detective Kerrie Orozco. Badge number 1969, retired. And you heard it here. It was played out to the group at the cemetery. Her last call this afternoon at 2:39. Even in a death, John and Mallory, Officer Orozco had a way of bringing the community together. Back to you.
It's wonderfully together. And Omaha Mayor Jean Stothard offered her thoughts in a statement.
It reads in part, "In our grief, Omaha stood together as one community today. As the procession moved through downtown Omaha, I saw thousands of people but heard nothing. This silent tribute reminds me that Omaha is strong and a compassionate community."
That's an excellent point, how loud silence can be, and it really was today.
And a scene we saw play out over and over again. We also want to mention we saw the horse go by without a rider on it. You mentioned the significance of this while covering the funeral.
Right, they're representing the fallen officer, Kerrie Orozco, and gosh, so many other tributes, the taps when it was played, the helicopter flyover, and then bagpipes, just a very dignified respect.
Powerful moments in our history that many of us will never forget.
Well, we did see it rain pretty heavily at the cemetery, so looking forward to the weather now. Chief Meteorologist Mike LaPointe.
and weather-wise, it will improve here. Again, most of the heavy rainfall now has pushed off to our east. We're still monitoring a few spotty showers, so can't rule out a passing shower here between now and, let's say, 7. But generally speaking, we should just stay mainly cloudy for a while. 66 degrees here in Omaha, 68 in Bellevue. It's also 68 in Plattsmouth. So here's your hour planning forecast for the evening. Matter of fact, we are looking at a little sunshine out there as well. Mix that in with a few passing showers, but again, not too major of a weather story. We'll see those skies begin to clear and temperatures fall to around 61 degrees at midnight. It gets much warmer tomorrow. We're going to track that, and we're also going to talk about the weekend in a few minutes.
All right, we'll be back to some of the day's other news.
You're watching WOWT 6 News live at 6.